Hey, happy Thursday afternoon, everybody. This is a video following up from yesterday explaining why the Giants bench Eli Manning, and I wanted to preface by saying, as a sports fanatic news, I'm Joe Borick, and yesterday I didn't come out and kind of say, I think it's not necessarily the wrong move to get a look at the young quarterbacks, but you should be getting a look more at Davis Webb than Geno Smith, because we all know Geno Smith's not going to be the future quarterback of your franchise, and the franchise itself, being the Giants, said they drafted Davis Webb thinking he could be Eli's predecessor, but wanted to give him more time because Cal Berkeley's offense is an air raid offense that the players don't have to go through all the progressions and like an NFL offense has to, which is why being behind Brett Favre really helped Rodgers, who was from Cal Berkeley, and Jared Goff kind of got thrown into it quickly, who's also from Cal Berkeley, and didn't do great with Jeff Fisher, but now with McVay, who's a quarterback whisperer coach, a very good coach with QBs, much like Doug Peterson in Philadelphia, and unlike Jason Garrett in Dallas, which is Dak hasn't been doing good with Parker B because his coach, when it comes down to it, without having great talent around him, kind of has had a mediocre tenure in Dallas and has never been fantastic in terms of coaching quarterbacks. And that, in part, is an issue with Ben McAdoo. You could sense, last year the Giants were really good, mostly because of their defense. Eli had a decent season, but it was more or less because of their defense. And yeah, like I said yesterday, Eli Manning's numbers have been going down over the years, but he still has the best numbers of quarterbacks in Giants history and has very good numbers overall and has won 2 Super Bowls. So it's a balancing act of, does that guy deserve to get treated better in terms of how this situation plays through? And the answer is yes. When you haven't missed a start since Obama was elected to Senate, not president, Senate, you've been there, you play through injuries, you play through adversity, you play through one of the toughest media towns, more so than Boston, Philadelphia, or any city in California, New York being the toughest media town, through the ups and downs, and through taking a lot of risk. Eli Manning was the definition of a risk-taker quarterback, for better or for worse, and for his career it ended up being for better. Picks didn't mean a lot to him as long as they got wins, and he was able to come back in the end and get a touchdown. The guy beat the Patriots, who were undefeated. Then they came back after starting the season not too well to win Super Bowl again against the Patriots. I mean, it's pretty impressive to beat Tom Brady twice. Not just once, twice. But going on numbers, he's top 10 in passing yards and TDs. He has 2 Super Bowl MVPs, beat Favre, Rodgers, Brady twice, and Matt Ryan in the playoffs, who were all very respectable quarterbacks in themselves. Obviously, some the best of all time and will go down as the best of all time. And Nate Silver did a study that had Eli as the clutchest QB all time in playoffs, so that kind of surprised him. It probably was surprised most over like a guy like Montana, Steve Young, or Brady himself. And so he ran it again with a different algorithm, and it still came out again that he was the best all time in playoff clutchness. So obviously the Giants are going to make the playoffs this year, but that goes and favors all those numbers I just read to having Eli easily be able to find a job in another franchise somewhere. I think this situation was dealt with terribly. The Giants are still a classy organization that runs things well. Like, we think of the Steelers as that type of organization that's always run things well. New England, the 49ers had it back in the day, but that's really gone by the wayside. And now, since the Giants' former head coach Coughlin's in Jacksonville, they're starting to be a organization that tries to get out in front of things and doesn't deal with crap and runs the organization well. And he weighed in on the conversation and said it's not really surprising, or I mean, it is surprising. And basically, his sentiments are with Eli Manning, where I'll actually just pull it up real quick to read exactly what he said. He said, surprise is not the word. My sentiments are totally with Eli. I love the kid. He is a class act. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's the finest, most humblest young man in the locker room. He said, I haven't followed the Giants this year. I know it's a very disappointing year, but my thoughts are strictly with Eli. I was very upset when I heard that. Phillip Rivers then weighed in saying he thinks he deserved the right to finish it out. And the deal of trying to say the guy can start and then get a look at Geno or Davis Webb later in the game, they should have dealt with it just by saying if they wanted to move on, they would move on. And Davis Webb or Geno will get the start. But again, we know Geno Smith's not going to be the future quarterback of the Giants. Davis Webb could have the opportunity to be, but he's more of a guy that, obviously I'm not saying he'll be as good as Rodgers, but he's more of a guy that came out of Cal, and even Goff was more of a guy that should have been put on the bench for the whole last season, but then got forced into action because Jeff Fisher was past his time as a coach and etc. But some of those guys out of that air raid offense in Cal need more time to develop. So it'll be interesting to see, per reports, Webb might start as early as next week against the Cowboys, how well he does. Now Cal Berkeley has produced good quarterbacks in recent years, obviously, in Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff. So Davis Webb could end up being the answer for the Giants, but they could have done it in a lot more humility way and kind of just told Eli straight up, this is kind of a lost season. We want to see what we got in the young kids, and which Geno Smith really is in one, but the young kid, and see how he can develop for the future of our football team. And the class act Eli is, the next day was right there with the playbook with Geno and Davis Webb, which they said he's been doing all along this season, trying to make those two better quarterbacks, and was right there with them the next day, not having his head below his shoulders and with his head held high, and was doing really well mentoring them and getting them to be ready for Webb to be ready for whenever he's called upon, and Geno to be ready to play this Sunday. It's just a tough situation, but Eli Manning, per the numbers I read, obviously has earned a right to go to another team. I think that team could likely actually be Jacksonville, because now Coughlin's the VP of operations there. We know how much they had a great relationship with each other. And Jacksonville is really, more or less, kind of a QB, a really good QB to have around good wide receivers and a running back in Fournette, away from being very successful, and not just successful like they are this year in the good turnaround they have. And Denver would be the other option. My favorite would be for him to go to Jacksonville. That's who I would think is the favorite. And then Denver, if Kirk Cousins does the same in Washington, that could be an option. Or they could draft somebody. But, yeah, they did do Eli Manning dirty. The Giants owners and people that run the organization, it's a family organization. But your reputation does get damaged through decisions, because your reputation is made through making decisions. So they did hurt their reputation a little bit with how they dealt with the whole Josh Brown situation, how they dealt with Ben McAdoo not being the right fit, and the GM Reese not necessarily being the right fit either. But they've always been known to wait and see how stuff plays out, which is not necessarily bad in its own right. But it's just a matter of how you make those decisions to see how stuff plays out. And it wasn't great with Coughlin, and now it's not great with Eli Manning. But again, every organization goes through bad decision making. They'll turn around and make a good decision, maybe putting in Davis Webb, which they didn't handle that situation. That will either not having him ready, he hasn't been active yet this year, or not having him ready, over Geno Smith, who we know is just a plug-in and Davis Webb is the only guy on your roster that has a chance to replace Eli, we know that's the guy that's eventually going to get the time. They should have had him more ready. But they did do Eli Manning dirty. He has good numbers, and he'll end up going somewhere and doing well. Have a great day, everyone. Catch you later. Peace. This is Sports Fanatic News. I'm Joe Bohr.